Diabetes. It's not only a chronic disease, it's a growing one. More and more people are diagnosed every day and have to be medicated for life, as well as suffer many potentially traumatic associated health conditions. One of the best things you can do to both prevent and treat diabetes is to lose weight, but for so many people, that's easier said than done. In this video, I'm going to share with you how you can not only drop the weight, but keep it off for life. Have you heard that there's an epidemic going on out there? No, I'm not talking about COVID-19, monkeypox, the flu, RSV, or whatever the next virus is. I'm talking about the diabetes epidemic. Year after year, more people are diagnosed with type 2 diabetes at a devastating rate. And the saddest thing about this that just gets me every time is that no one needs to have this disease. It should be totally non-existent. It's wild. In 1960, 1 in 100 Americans were struggling with type 2 diabetes. Today, it's 1 in 8. Isn't that crazy? 206 million people in the US are living with this disease when no one should have it. In 2021, there were 2.3 million deaths from type 2 diabetes. And just to compare, in 2021, COVID was associated with 460,000 deaths. And we know this is a conservatively high number because these deaths were associated with COVID and not necessarily caused by it. I just don't understand why obesity and type 2 diabetes isn't a public emergency. I don't understand why no one is talking about this. No one is letting us know the real impact, and even more so, no one is talking to us that type 2 diabetes can be put into remission for a lot of us. So I'm here to tell you that it doesn't have to be a chronic progressive disease. I want you to think that this is actually really exciting news. And even more exciting is the fact that you can do this by the way you eat and the lifestyle that you follow. I'll tell you everything about it in this video. So what is diabetes? A quick description from the CDC. If you have diabetes, you have too much sugar that stays in your bloodstream. Over time, that can cause serious health problems such as heart disease, vision loss, and kidney disease. Anyone can get it, and over the last 16 years, we've seen a 95% increase in prevalence in our kids. I want to try to explain what happens metabolically when we take in our food and when we start to struggle with insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. So I want to imagine that for breakfast you eat a bowl of steel-cut oats, because for some reason we think that if oats are steel-cut, they're different when they're really not. But we take in those steel-cut oats, maybe or an organic vanilla yogurt, could be plant-based, could be cow-based, whatever, and maybe some blueberries on top of it. We take all of that in, it goes into our stomach, and we absorb that out basically as sugar. I know that these are carbohydrates, simple and complex, but really the body's gonna break it down and it's gonna go into the bloodstream as sugar. And the body can only tolerate about 1 to 2 teaspoons of sugar in the bloodstream at a given time, or else it becomes really toxic. And this breakfast that I talk about probably is a minimum of 10, maybe up to 20 teaspoons of sugar in our bodies. It's crazy, even though it comes from these natural sources. This sugar goes into the blood and the body doesn't like it, just like I said, and so it tells the pancreas to release insulin. And insulin is a hormone, it's a fat storage hormone, it's an inflammatory hormone, and we pretty much can all agree that we don't want insulin to be very high. So we eat this food, it talks to the pancreas, and the pancreas releases insulin, and I want you to imagine that insulin is like a little key. And what it should do is it should travel around to your muscle cells, and it should open up the door to your muscle cells so that this sugar that's stuck in the bloodstream can travel into the cell and you can use it for energy. If you have insulin resistance, if you are diabetic, I want you to imagine that your muscle cell has a callus over it. The muscle cell is also already so full of this sugar that it just can't accept anymore. And so now this insulin travels around, but it bounces off the cell wall. It's like your cell has a callus. It can't open the door. So now the muscle cell is all full of this sugar, and you have all this circulating sugar in the bloodstream with nowhere to go. This is toxic to the body. This is what the CDC just said causes vision loss and kidney disease. So we've got to get this sugar out of the blood. What is your body going to do? It's going to try to protect you somehow, so it flips all that sugar into fat. Your liver starts to fill up with fat. It starts to have an outflow of LDL, which is what your doctor calls bad cholesterol. And we start to store all this fat in the belly and throughout the body because the body is trying to protect you from becoming type 2 diabetic. This is what happens when you're on the road to insulin resistance and diabetes. So the biggest causes of type 2 diabetes is overweight and obesity. It's an inactive, high-stress lifestyle. It's insulin resistance, like I just talked about, and your genetics do come into play significantly here. You can prevent diabetes from eating well, from eating underneath your carb tolerance level, from moving every day, 30 minutes every day, no matter if it's raining or if it's cold or if you forgot your jacket, maintaining a healthy weight, sleeping well, and following a routine, managing your stress. You really need to treat your body like it's the one and only car that you get for the rest of your life. Now, if you already have type 2 diabetes, like I've said earlier, putting it into remission is totally possible for most people. Most often, this goes hand in hand with losing weight, especially when you do it through shifting what you eat rather than simply restricting calories. And the reason why is because changing your nutrition rather than just eating less allows you to regulate and reduce blood sugar levels and insulin levels. Remember, I talked about the oatmeal with the yogurt and the blueberries and how that influences your body. It's not just about eating less of those items, it's about eating different foods altogether. So here are the main 7 things to consider with your nutrition. Now, if you make any changes at all, I want you to ask your doctor first and recognize that this isn't medical advice. You'll likely need your physician's support if you're on any kind of medications, as these can shift and you may experience blood sugar lows if you don't have medical management of your medications. So the first thing is that you need to drop your carbs and let go of the notion right here, right now, that you need to eat 45 to 60 grams of carbohydrates at each meal. That's just bogus. As a diabetic, you are pretty much carbohydrate intolerant. That doesn't mean you have to be keto or Atkins and take out the carbs altogether, but your body does not tolerate them well. No ifs, buts, ands about it. If you have lactose intolerance, for example, you can't eat dairy or else you feel terrible. If you have celiac disease, you can't eat gluten or else it just wrecks your stomach and your whole system. This is the same thing for you if you're diabetic with carbohydrates. So there's still a time and a place for them, but in general, you don't need as much as you've been told you need. Eating healthy fats. Don't do anything that's fat-free or low-fat or diet. Think real food in its real form. If you're going to eat an egg, eat the whole thing, including the beautiful yolk that has all of the nutrition and vitamins and minerals in it. If you're going to have cream in your coffee, my favorite food, heavy cream. Eat your fat, it's really great. The third tip is to make sure that all of your meals are protein forward. So remember that your first meal and your last meal of the day are most important when you think about protein. You want to make sure that you have about 20 to 45 grams in both of those meals. About 0.73 grams per pound of your ideal body weight is what you're aiming for. An important thing to note though is if you eat too much protein for your body, for example, anything over about 50 to 60 grams of protein for a meal, your body just can't absorb and it's going to be stored as fat. So if you eat too much, more than that protein for your body and your unique body size, it's going to spike insulin just like that carbohydrate-rich meal. So you want to make sure that you have the perfect amount of protein for your body. Lifting weights is really important to reduce your insulin needs and reduce your blood sugar. It's really interesting how I mentioned insulin can open up the cell and allow the sugar to flow in. Well, exercise does that naturally. You don't even need the impact of insulin there. So that's really cool. Drink fluids, especially if you are reducing your carbs a bit, your fluid needs increase. And if you just drink plain water, it can actually get you into trouble. So you want to make sure, again, talk with your doctor before you add any kind of salts to your diet, but salting your foods and getting some electrolytes in your water is really important. You can also just add a squeeze of lemon and some sea salt into your water, and that can do the trick for a lot of people. The sixth tip is to make sure that you sleep adequately. Sleep has a huge impact on your blood sugar and your insulin needs. And if you have type 2 or type 1 diabetes, you know that if you don't sleep or if you get sick, it can wreak havoc on your blood sugar levels. And then manage stress. Same thing goes. Last tip is to really reflect on your stress levels and making sure that you have practices every day to help reduce those. You'll know that your diabetes is improving as your blood sugars start to drop and normalize. If you're on insulin, your needs will start to reduce as your body starts to work the way that it's supposed to. Pain will likely start to decrease and you'll feel so much better. I had a client, Tim, and when he started with us, he was on about 20 units of insulin a day. Within his first 3 days on the program, he dropped his insulin needs in half. Within 2 weeks, he was on no more insulin. Amazing? I know it seems almost unbelievable, but we see it happen every day. If you are a diabetic, type 1 or type 2, and you're interested in making huge improvements in your health, click the link below and we'll get you started with one of our nutritionists, and I know that we can help your situation. Remember that type 2 diabetes doesn't have to be a chronic progressive disease. There is so much hope, and remission can happen quickly for a lot of people who are willing and ready to make some dietary and lifestyle changes. Let's let go of type 2 diabetes. It's up to us to change the future. Now you're ready to start your weight loss journey and beat diabetes. But where do you start? And how do you face your struggles? I got you. Before starting to search for your ideal weight, watch this video here, and I'm going to share with you all of my tips on how to make it easy to follow any diet. Why should you make it difficult if being easy is also a possibility? Click on the video so we can start right away.